My name is Elliot, and I've always been a tailor by trade, stitching dreams into fabric for those who could afford them. In the bustling heart of the city, where the air thrummed with the clamor of street vendors and horse-drawn carriages, I eked out a modest living in a cramped workshop, mending hems and crafting suits for minor merchants. But the competition was fierce, and as the years wore on, my clients dwindled, leaving me with empty pockets and a gnawing void of failure. The city's grind had already begun unraveling my spirit, thread by thread, whispering of loves forsaken and ambitions frayed in its relentless maw. It was a life of quiet desperation, where the sharp prick of a needle was often the only sensation reminding me I still drew breath. So, when word came last autumn that my grandmother had passed, leaving me her secluded shop on the edge of town, a flicker of hope pierced the grief. The inheritance seemed a fresh start, a chance to flee the city's suffocating weave and revive my faltering craft. The shop was a relic from a bygone era, huddled at the end of a winding, fog-veiled lane where the town's cobblestone yielded to overgrown fields and whispering woods. It was a creaky, old building, its wooden facade scarred by decades of rain and neglect, with dust-flecked windows that filtered sunlight into hazy, spectral beams. Inside, the air hung heavy with the faint scent of aged thread, mingled with the musty decay of forgotten fabrics and the metallic tang of polished brass. Shelves sagged under bolts of silk, wool, and damask, some so ancient they disintegrated at the slightest touch. Cobwebs fastened the corners like ghostly lace, and the floorboards groaned underfoot as if resenting my presence. I remember the day I arrived. Autumn leaves swirled in a chill wind as I pushed open the door, the bell above tolling a mournful chime. Stitch, bind, weave. It seemed to echo faintly in my mind. It felt like stepping into a crypt, one that had lain in wait for me all these years, its shadows already reaching for the regrets I carried like hidden seams. The crown jewel of the inheritance was my grandmother's antique sewing machine, a hulking brass monstrosity from the 19th century. Its intricate engravings of swirling vines and unblinking eyes seeming to track my every movement with predatory intent. The pedals were worn smooth by generations of feet, dulled to a sinister sheen from endless hours of toil. Grandmother's will mentioned it vaguely, calling it a family heirloom with stories to tell. I dismissed it at first. To me, it was merely a tool, albeit a magnificent one, poised to elevate my work. I was grateful for the shop, the machine, the isolation. It all seemed a salve for my weary soul. Business had withered in the city, and this felt like a sanctuary for renewal. That very evening I arranged my tools, the flickering oil lamp casting elongated shadows that twisted like grasping fingers across the room as I prepared my first project. Yet, as I threaded the needle, a fleeting hallucination gripped me. The face of a lost love, Anna, blooming in the fabric's weave, her eyes accusatory, unraveling my old heartaches like loose stitches. The anomalies began small, insidious, slithering into my awareness like a loose thread unraveling a seam in the dark. On my first night alone, as the wind howled outside and rain lashed the windows, I threaded a needle for a simple vest promised to a local farmer. The air thickened, heavy with an unnatural chill that clawed into my bones like icy talons. As I worked, a whisper slithered from the machine's gears, like wind through shattered glass, murmuring words just beyond comprehension. It was faint, almost melodic, a susurrus blending with the rhythmic clack of the needle. I paused, hands hovering over the fabric, straining to listen. Stitch, bind, weave. I shook my head, forcing a nervous chuckle. It must be the wind whistling through the eaves, or fatigue from the long journey. The shop was ancient. Drafts and echoes were inevitable. But then the fabrics began to stir. A bolt of silk I'd laid out for a client's order twitched beneath my fingers, writhing like something alive. Faint veins pulsing under its surface, as if infused with a heartbeat. I froze, my pulse thundering in my ears. The lamp's flame leaping wildly, as if stirred by an unseen breath. The silk undulated, slow and sinuous, like a serpent uncoiling from slumber. I recoiled, my chair scraping the floor with a jarring screech, staring in disbelief. When I blinked and looked again, it lay still, innocuous, its surface smooth and unblemished. I rubbed my eyes, blaming the dim light and my frayed nerves. That night, as I sewed to the machine's insistent rhythm, the whispers sharpened. Bind them. Weave them in. They echoed in my mind, a chorus of spectral voices emanating from the brass itself. I told myself it was imagination, echoes of grandmother's old tales, winter night yarns of ghostly artisans who wove faints into cloth, ensnaring souls in eternal patterns. Yet, deep down, a malice stirred, as if some long-buried entity lurked within the machine, ravenous for more than mere thread. It coiled around my spine, cold and unyielding, like phantom fingers tracing the nape of my neck, murmuring of my own forsaken dreams. Sleep evaded me that night. I lay in the small bedroom above the shop, the ceiling beams creaking like the tortured groans of a sinking vessel. Dreams fragmented into nightmares, threads snaking around my limbs, dragging me into an abyss where the faces screamed silently from woven tapestries. Anna's among them, her voice a frayed whisper of abandonment. I woke drenched in sweat, the whispers fading like a venomous echo. The next morning I tried to dispel it, burying myself in mundane tasks of cleaning and organizing. But the shop felt alive, watchful, its dust motes swirling in the sunlight to form shapes like clutching hands. Or was that Lydia's face, fleeting and furious? The machine crouched in the corner, its brass gleaming with a predatory luster. I avoided it most of the day, opting for hand-stitching minor repairs. Yet, as evening descended, and shadows stretched like elongated claws, an inexplicable compulsion drew me back, urging me to test its mechanisms. The terrors escalated with my first customers, twisting the shop from sanctuary to sepulchre. Mrs. Harrow arrived on a misty afternoon, shrouded in black mourning garb, her eyes shadowed by unspoken anguish, a widow from the nearby village. Her face was etched with sorrow's deep furrows, losses too profound to utter. "A bespoke gown," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread. "Something elegant for the autumn ball. I need to feel alive again." I nodded, with feigned sympathy, measuring her with trembling tape, noting the quiver in her hands before the mirror, mirroring my own buried grief for Anna, drowned in the sea of my obsessions. The air grew denser, the scent of aged thread thickening like cloying incense. I selected a fine damask, its crimson hue shimmering like congealing blood, and set to work on the machine. The pedals glided with an eerie autonomy, the needle blurring in a frenzy that made my hands ache in sympathy. Whispers rose from the gears, louder now, a sibilant chant weaving through the clatter. "Her sorrows, drown them deep, like your own sinking failures, Elliot." I tried to ignore it, fixating on the pattern, but a chill slithered over me, raising gooseflesh like prickling needles. The gown materialized far too swiftly, seems flawless beyond human skills. Mrs. Harrow tried it on in the fitting room, gasping in delight at first, twirling before the mirror as the fabric flowed like liquid night. "It's perfect," she murmured, her eyes igniting with fleeting life. Then her face contorted in abject horror. The gown clung like parasitic skin, constricting her torso with malicious intent. She choked, clawing at her throat as if submerged in icy depths, her gasps ragged and desperate. "Regrets pulling me under," she wheezed, eyes bulging with primal terror. She crumpled to the floor in convulsions, body thrashing, as if assailed by invisible currents. I rushed to her, heart pounding like a trapped animal, and tore the dress free with frantic hands. The fabric resisted, clinging like thorny vines, threads snapping with the vicious pops. She lay gasping, skin pallid and slick, before scrambling upright and fleeing, babbling of endless waves of sorrow woven into her soul, drowning her in memories of a child lost to fever, a husband claimed by the sea. As she vanished, a subtle itch bloomed on my skin, like threads burrowing deep, etching my own regrets into my flesh. I examined the gown that evening, alone as thunder growled outside. Under the lamplight, it shimmered with faint, embroidered scenes that hadn't existed before. Intricate depictions of stormy waters, faces howling in eternal anguish, looping like a cursed frise. The threads throbbed faintly, alive with her pain's essence. I dropped it in revulsion, staggering back until the wall halted me. The machine loomed silent, yet its presence pressed like a malevolent shadow. Sleep was a torment that night, Whispers infiltrated my dreams, mocking with promises of more. More victims followed, each ensnaring me deeper in the machine's web of dread. Next came Mr. Thorne, a corpulent banker from the town square, cheeks flushed with avaricious arrogance. He demanded a suit of finest wool for his bloating frame, his voice oozing contempt for inferior tailors past. I measured him reluctantly, the shop's air turning oppressively warm, sweat beading on my brow despite the autumn bite. His greed echoing my own failed ambitions, scorching like molten coins in my thoughts. As I worked the machine, pedals spun with feverish zeal, the needle striking like a viper. Whispers filled the air. Greed, tally the blood, yours too, Elliot. Depths of the heart unpaid. The suit assembled in hours, seems impeccable. But when Thorne donned it, his smirk dissolved into panic. He screamed, clawing at pockets swelling with phantom coins that seared his flesh like molten iron. "Ledgers of blood!" he howled, crumpling to his knees as visions assaulted him, endless scrolls stained crimson, tallying not gold, but lives shattered by usury and deceit. The fabric constricted, forcing him to relive every foreclosed home, every destitute family. I pried it off, but he staggered away a shattered husk, muttering of debts beyond redemption. The suit, upon inspection, bore embroidered ledgers in its lining, numbers shifted like sentient ink. The itch on my skin intensified, patterns faintly blooming, visions of my city's failures woven in. Then came the young widow, Eliza, her eyes hollowed by her husband's mining accident. She requested a simple shawl to fend off evening's chill, her voice quavering with buried grief. The machine hummed to life, whispers, a lullaby of rot. Embrace rotting arms, like the loves you let decay, Elliot. As she draped it over her shoulders, it ensnared her in visions of her husband's decaying grasp, threads tightening until she raked her skin bloody in frenzy. "He's here, holding me down," she cried, ripping it free and vanishing into the night. Each time the machine's whispers swelled, reveling in the pandemonium. Their fears are the finest silk, eternal garments for the damned. In stolen moments of terror, I pieced it together. The machine wasn't merely sewing cloth, it was ensnaring souls, binding buried fears into perpetual nightmares. And I, grandmother's heir, was the unwitting vessel, condemned to bear witness. The shop, once a refuge, now felt like a cage, walls closing in with every echoing scream, my skin throbbing with the curse's insidious spread. The toll on me was profound. Nights bled into days as paranoia clutched my mind. I barricaded the door, shunning new customers, but the machine beckoned in the silence, gears clicking softly like impatient teeth. My reflections in the windows revealed a gaunt spectre, eyes ringed with shadows, and I noticed insidious changes, threads of doubt snaking through my thoughts, magnifying my failures. Anna's face haunting every bolt. Her loss, a putrid embrace I couldn't shake. The whispers turned intimate. Your regrets, stitch them tight, forsaken for ambition's greed. I shunned mirrors, dreading patterns blooming on my skin like stinging tattoos. Desperation propelled me to unearth the shop's secrets, delving into forgotten corners of my inheritance. One stormy evening, lightning slashing the attic in jagged bursts, I ascended the narrow stairs, air choked with dust and mildew's rot. Amid yellow ledgers and crumbling sketches, faded designs of gowns and suits from lost eras, I discovered a journal, bound in cracked leather, pages brittle as desiccated skin. It was my great-aunt Lydia's, a rival tailor spurned by my grandmother decades ago. The entries sketched betrayal. Lydia, the true visionary, her innovations coveted, but grandmother, consumed by envy, stole them, claiming glory and dooming Lydia to ruin. The journal chronicled the fall, clients vanishing, debts mounting, reputation unraveling like cheap thread. As I read, phantom pain lanced my chest. Lydia's betrayal echoing my own heart's wounds. Her malice seeping into me like venom through the pages. In her final entry, scrawled in quivering script smeared with what might have been tears or venom, she cursed the machine with her dying breath, succumbing to a self-administered poison. Let every stitch bind the betrayer's bloodline to my agony, weave their souls into the void. The words iced my veins. The spectre was her, fixated on me, the last descendant, her malice a festering rot unhealed by time. That night, compelled to sew, the machine infused my work with omens, threads forming visions of my failures, lost loves as ghostly silhouettes in the fabric, forsaken ambitions fraying like severed veins, drawing me toward reckoning. Shadows congealed into a wraith-like form, hollow eyes glaring from brass reflections, urging confrontation. She manifested in glimpses, a translucent woman in ragged attire, fingers elongated like needles, reaching to drag me into the machine's gaping maw, her whispers taunting. Join me, Elliot, in the weaves of your regrets. I could not endure it. The curse's weight smothered me like a burial shroud, extinguishing hope. In a fevered midnight ritual, drawn from occult scribbles in the journal's margins, rites of fire and reversal from shadowed grimoires, I commandeered the machine one last time. The shop became a cocoon of darkness, candles guttering in a circle around the brass abomination, flames birthing writhing shadows on the walls. The air reeked of melting wax and smoldering herbs scattered per the incantations. Rain scourged the windows, thunder rumbling like the machine's pulsing heart. I recreated the betrayal's pivotal garment, a dress Lydia designed, the one grandmother usurped. Hands shaking, I cut the pattern from memory, pristine white silk resisting my scissors like living flesh. Petals whirled in madness, needle a storm of fury, whispers escalating to shrieks. Unravel me if you dare. The dress formed, embroidered with the theft, shadowy thieves pilfering sketches under moonlit gloom. Lydia's face twisted in eternal torment. As the final stitch sealed it, a gale snuffed half the candles, drowning the room in twilight. I drenched the garment in oil, the liquid seeping in like spilled blood, and bore it to the hearth's ravenous blaze. I cast it into the flames. The fabric shrieked as it burned, a piercing, inhuman wail that reverberated through the shop, shattering windows and spewing embers like vengeful spirits. The spectre materialized fully, distorted, rage incarnate, featuring a grotesque mask of betrayal, ectoplasmic threads unraveling from her form like bleeding wounds. She lunged, fingers grazing my skin with glacial fire. But as the dress crumbled to ash, she disintegrated in a final, soul-rending howl, essence dispersing like acrid smoke. The machine ground to a shuddering halt. Exhausted, I collapsed, racked with sobs of deliverance, convinced I'd banished the curse. The shop felt hollow. The oppressive pall lifted. For the first time in weeks, I breathed unburdened. But as dawn bled across the sky in pallid gold, a subtle itch wormed into my veins, like threads burrowing deep beneath my flesh. I stumbled to the mirror, morning light unveiling the abomination. Faint patterns bloomed on my skin, embroidered visions of every customer's torment. Mrs. Harrow's drowning sorrows, Thorn's scorching greed, Eliza's putrid embrace, and now my own, indelibly woven into my being. The ghost hadn't fled. She'd bound herself to me, her ultimate vengeance etching the tapestry of agony into my soul. No flame could erase it. I am the eternal garment now, haunted by whispers only I can hear, my body a living malediction that pulses with every heartbeat. As the town stirs outside, blind to the nightmare I've become, I know there is no escape, only an infinite weave of torment, tethering me in her vendetta until my life's threads finally fray. In the days that followed, I tried to conceal the markings, swathing my skin in layers of fabric from my own stock, but the threads within throbbed with insidious vitality, emboldening with each hour. Customers came and went, their gazes lingering with unspoken unease, and I sensed the curse awakening, ravenous to ensnare fresh souls in its design. One evening, alone in the dim shop, the sewing machine stirred unbidden, its needle capering across a virgin bolt of cloth, stitching patterns that mirrored the horrors inscribed on my flesh. I watched in numb horror, grasping the truth. I was no longer mere bearer, but the loom itself, fated to fashion endless vestments of suffering for an unwitting world. Desperation drove me to the hearth once more. But this time, I offered myself to the flames, praying to incinerate the infestation. The fire devoured me with voracious tongues, agony erupting like 1,000 needles impaling my core. But as vision dimmed, her laughter resounded in the inferno, not vanquished, but victorious. In that terminal instant, I comprehended the final perversion. My ashes would scatter on the wind, sowing the curse into the town's soil, where it would germinate in every heart, every hearth. The tailor's legacy was sealed, an immortal pall enshrouding all. And in death I would become the thread that bound them eternally.